Welcome back to another video. With the NFL season right around the corner, I thought it was a really good time to kind of check in on the state of the league, check in on the state of the teams, the players, and make some predictions over under win totals. I think this is just a really good time to get into this. There's been a lot of moving parts in the offseason, as there always is. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to make these predictions based off a few different things. One is just gut feeling. We, for the most part, know what to expect from these teams. They have similar quarterbacks. We know what divisions they're in, but we're also going to take a look at these teams' schedules, make the best guesses we possibly can, be as educated with our guesses as we possibly can. It's not an exact science. It's not going to be perfect. It's actually going to be ugly at times. But we're going to go out there and we're going to see what we can do. And I think I'm going to try to check in on these over under predictions at least a couple times throughout the season, maybe once during the halfway point, maybe week 8 or 9, around there. And then obviously towards the end of the year, see how we're doing. Hopefully we do pretty well. So this is obviously on ESPN's page, and the first over under they have is for the Baltimore Ravens. Their line is set at 11.5 games. I don't think I really need to check the schedule for the Ravens. I think we know what this team is all about for the most part. Lamar Jackson, a premier quarterback. This is the preseason. There's the regular season. They open up at Buffalo. It's going to be a hell of a game. I actually think Baltimore might be able to win that. I think Buffalo's the slightly better team. I might even trust Josh a little bit more in the big moment. Nothing against Lamar, but if I'm being completely honest, I think Lamar should have won the MVP last year. But even then, his performance in that divisional round game in Buffalo as well, in the playoffs, it left a lot to be desired. He threw a couple of erratic passes early on. I think one bad fumble when he was just trying to do too much. And then the pick, I think it was on the first or second drive of the game. So I think Lamar is obviously going to win a ton of games. He's going to put up amazing numbers. He's a top 3 quarterback in my opinion, but I think Josh just has a little bit something extra. I trust Josh a little bit more. So I do like Buffalo more than Baltimore as far as giving Kansas City a real run for their money. But, it's not, I wouldn't say this schedule is a complete cakewalk. You open up at Buffalo, like I said, Detroit's on there, Kansas City on the road. Houston was a playoff team. The Rams are going to make some noise out west like they always do. Week 6 might actually be a pretty good time to play the Rams, though. We don't know about Stafford's health. Chicago should be an easy win. Miami, I think nobody really trusts. But maybe they turn up for a Thursday night football game at home, so I don't think they're just going to roll over either. Cleveland always gives Lamar and gives Baltimore some trouble. I'm really interested in seeing the Cincinnati games. I think Cincinnati and Baltimore played 2 classics last year. Obviously, Joe played his heart out. Jamar Chase played his heart out, but they just couldn't get the stop defensively, and those were really great games last year. So with that in mind, I think I'm still going to go the over. I think 12-5 is just about right for Baltimore. Definitely a playoff team. I don't see why they shouldn't win this division. Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh might be good enough for 8 or 9 wins. I wouldn't pick them for anything more than that. Like I said, Cincinnati still hasn't figured out their defense. This is Baltimore's division. They should easily be a top 3 seed in the AFC again. Let's go over with that. I'm not even going to look at Buffalo's schedule over 11.5 wins. That feels like a cakewalk. I feel like they're there every single year. Maybe the lowest amount of wins in the Josh Allen era has been 11 since he became a really established full-time starter. They're constantly going 11-6, 12 wins, 13 wins sometimes. So yeah, I think they're going to get to this number pretty easily. I also think Kansas City is going to get to this number pretty easily. When you have this upper echelon of quarterback play in Lamar, Josh, and Patrick, obviously, when you have quarterback play with those guys at the helm, there's just no way that you're going to miss out on the playoffs. There's no way you're really going to have that down of a year. I think those three guys are head and shoulders the top three quarterbacks in the NFL, and I say that with respect to Joe Burrow. He just hasn't been in the postseason for the past 2 years, so that's got to count against him. Philadelphia might be interesting. The under 11.5 is looking tempting. I just think they lost a ton of personnel defensively. But at the same time, you have the two rookies in the secondary. You have Mitchell and you have Cooper DeJean and you have Jalen Carter on the defensive line. Still, you retain Zach Bond, which is a hell of a find last year. But they just had such an amazing roster, and it all came together defensively last year, and we saw that in the Super Bowl. They did lose some personnel, but I think they're still going to win that division. You know what? Let's say under 11.5. I think they might get to 11, and that might be like a sneaky little cash right there. But I just feel like Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, maybe some of the wide receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they're going to start demanding the football more. Yes, they won the championship. They got their bling, but now they're going to be focused on themselves a little bit more. As individuals, they want their numbers. They want their touches. Maybe some chaos, makes its way into the locker room midseason or something like that. So let's say under 11.5 wins there. Cincinnati's a tough one. They obviously have gaping holes all over their defense, but at the same time, they have the most prolific offense in the league, most likely. Joe is a premier quarterback. I'd rank him at number 4 in the entire league, behind those big three we discussed at the top. It's going to be a matter of winning the close ones. Joe's going to keep you close. I don't see offensive talent like that getting blown out throughout the season. Even last year, a ton of their games came down to the wire. They just couldn't get the stop. They made a mistake in a big moment. So I think they're going to clean a lot of that stuff up. I think they're going to start the season better. They're playing in the preseason. They're going to take those first few games with a lot of, they're going to treat those games with a lot of importance. They're going to come out with a lot of intensity. But I think personnel-wise, I just think there's a lot of limitations on this roster, on this defense. It's going to be a long season, 17 games. We looked at the schedule. Oh, that's the Ravens. If we looked at their schedule, the big games against Baltimore come late in the year. They open up at Cleveland. They should win that. They should win the Jacksonville game. I mean, if you can finish off the first quarter of the season, weeks 1 through 4, 3-1, I think you're in a great spot, and I think that's doable. Joe Burrow outplayed J.J. McCarthy. That has to be done. Outplay Trevor Lawrence at home. That has to be done. Outplay, and then the Cleveland Browns game. If you want to be a playoff team, you have to win that game. No other way to put it. And then Denver's going to be a tough one Monday nighter against that defense, but I wouldn't call this schedule a cakewalk either. But yeah, their games against Baltimore, week 13, week 14 at Buffalo, and week 15. That's going to be a huge stretch for them, obviously. You know what? I'm going to say they do get 11 wins. They're going to be on Baltimore's heels all year, I believe. I think they're really going to play with a chip on their shoulder. Joe Burrow especially, he's going to want to be in the postseason, and I just don't see him missing out on the playoffs for 3 straight years. That's a pretty safe over, in my opinion, even though it's unpopular there. Only 38% of people have picked that. And then we go to the Lions. I think everybody's expecting a little bit of pullback with this team. In Detroit, obviously, 2 straight years of regular season success, regular season dominance, especially last year losing in the second round to a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. That's a step back. You lose both of your coordinators. That's not an easy hole to fill. Ben Johnson, offensive mastermind, Aaron Glenn, now the head coach of the Jets. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Dan Campbell, a lot of pressure on Jared Goff to deliver early. I think if they lose a couple close games early, there's going to be some shouting, there's going to be some intensity, as there always is in that locker room with Dan Campbell running the show. But I do expect some pullback. The schedule is brutal. I mean, we know about the NFC North. We know how talented that division is with Jordan Love and Caleb Williams progressing, hopefully, and the Vikings, what they were able to do last year. But, at Cincinnati here, at Kansas City, Tampa's going to be a really good team with Baker. At Washington, they got clocked by them in the playoffs last year. At Philly, at the Rams. The schedule is a gauntlet. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some pullback. I'm rooting for this team. I'm a big fan of Jared Goff. I'm a big fan of the culture that Dan Campbell has created there, but I'm going to go with the under 10.5. And I'm going to do the same with the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not big on Justin Herbert. He throws a beautiful football. He reads the field well, but at some point he has to be able to add something significant to his resume. He hasn't been able to do that. He's 0-2 in the postseason. He blew a 27-point lead in his first playoff game against the Jags, against Trevor Lawrence. That's just inexcusable, and then he gets a better coach. He gets Jim Harbaugh. They get to the playoffs again last year. He's thrown like 2 or 3 picks all regular season. He had a great regular season, playing efficient football, running the football a lot. J.K. Dobbins. And then in his first playoff game against Houston, he throws 4 picks. He looked flustered. I'm not putting all of that on him. Obviously a situation with the skill position players is not ideal. But, you now have Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnson was a big draft pick that's looking like a swing and a miss. But, you're going to have to make him work one way or the other. A great offensive line. Rashawn Slater just got injured. But I just think it's gonna come down to quarterback play in that division. Nobody's dethroning Mahomes as I see it, at least not yet. And then I really like Denver's offseason. I think Bo Nix is going to be able to game manage his way to a lot of wins, double-digit wins. And it's going to be a dogfight for those wins in that division. For playoff spots in the AFC, it's going to be a real dogfight. And I'm just not sure Justin Herbert's going to be able to deliver. Nothing against him, but it's just a really tough spot to be in the AFC. I'm going to go with the under 10.5. This is a very easy pick, in my opinion. Over 10.5 wins for the Rams. I know they're always right around 8, 9, 10, maybe 11 wins every now and then, but this is a playoff team. Sean McVay is one of the brightest coaches in the league. I really do value him a lot. I think Matthew Stafford throws a beautiful football as well. He finds a way to win games, make big passes, make big plays in big moments. People tend to forget they gave Philadelphia a real run for their money in the second round of the playoffs last year. They were 1 or 2 plays away from winning that game, and they played them a lot tougher than Washington did in the conference title game, and they played them a lot tougher than Kansas City did in the Super Bowl. So there's definitely pieces here. Jared Verse on the defensive line. Puka's an absolutely elite wide receiver. Kyron Williams is a great running back. He's not elite, but he's a very good running back. He's B+, A-, and that's enough to win games. And then, a young defense getting coached up. Sean McVay creating havoc on offense. Let's take a look at their schedule here. Houston, at Tennessee, at Philly's an early test. That's a good one. The San Francisco games are always interesting. Brock Purdy just got paid. That division is always relatively tight with San Francisco and Seattle and the Rams. At Baltimore, another early test. A week 8 bye, I feel like that's early on enough that maybe Matthew Stafford could take a week, maybe get himself healthy for the back end of the season. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything overwhelming about the schedule. I do feel comfortable with them getting to 11 wins possibly. And I think that's definitely in the cards. San Francisco is interesting as well. If I had to pick one of these teams to win the division, I would go with the Rams. And I think that just comes down to quarterback play. I think Brock Purdy is very serviceable, but I do think he's overpaid at whatever that amount is, $55 million a year. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, but I don't think he's gifted enough at that position for me to want to give him that much money. You look at Stafford, just to compare him to his contemporary rival in that division. Stafford's bigger, Stafford's taller, Stafford's got a better arm. Um, and all of that translated to him being the number 1 overall pick out of Georgia. So Brock Purdy has been a really pleasant surprise for the Niners. He's been a really serviceable player at times great, but I wouldn't classify him as an absolutely elite quarterback, somebody who can carry a team, somebody who can really put the team on his back every Sunday. I think the Niners can obviously win with him. They've done it in the past. I'm not arguing that. They've gone to the Super Bowl with him. But there's a difference between winning with a quarterback and winning because of a quarterback, and I don't think Brock Purdy fits the bill. So for that reason, we're going to go with the under 10.5. I think they'll be right around there, 9 or 10 wins. But obviously it's an older roster now, more expensive. They had let a lot of good defensive players go, Hufanga among others, and they're getting older, they're getting more injury prone, and that's just the reality of the NFL. Rosters go through a lot of transitions, and that's something that Brock Purdy is going to have to face. We have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams so far. We're going to finish it off here with Washington. I'm also going to go with the under 10.5. I think a sophomore slump is definitely in the cards for Jaden Daniels. Nothing against him. That's just a natural thing that happens to quarterbacks. You get a little bit more on film. Teams have just more opportunities, more time to study you and come up with a game plan. Defensive coordinators, maybe teams you bullied last year, they're going to want to make a statement this year. Tougher schedule, second place schedule this year. A lot more expectations. You're not really playing with house money. You're not sneaking up on anybody. So I think I'm rooting for them, but I think they're in real danger of missing out on the postseason. And not because they don't have a good team, not because they're not well coached. I'm a really big fan of Dan Quinn, but I just think there's teams, 2 or 3 every single year, that make the playoffs one year and don't the next. And that's just the turnover that happens season to season in the NFL. So I think Washington is a prime candidate to fall under that. And we've done about the first third of the team so far. Taking a look at their schedules, and I think we're going to leave it there for now. Definitely coming back to this and filling the rest of these out. But for now, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed.